everyone. Welcome to Wonderful Wednesday. It's another Wednesday. I hope it's wonderful. And it's wonderful for us because I'm with Leslie Schneider here. Good evening, Leslie. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm doing great. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad to be here. It's the best place I can be on a Wednesday, besides the couch with a glass of wine and a cup of ice cream, which is where I'll be after this. You can't beat that. That's a
What kind
motivator
of
for sure.
what kind of wine do you drink with your bowl of ice cream, Don?
Oh, the kind that comes in a big jug with a handle on it. That's the cheap kind.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
maybe like a really nice glass of port
Mhm.
with a chocolate, like a deep dark chocolate, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
ice cream or something.
That sounds
Like
authentic.
maybe like a mango sorbet and a Riesling.
Now, see, I'd reserve. Oh, I love Rieslings, by the way, and those I'd reserve for the weekends. Now, I used to not buy any expensive wine because when I had older kids in the house, they just drink it all. So you start having to hide. You start hiding the good stuff. So I would get seriously. I would go get like one of those giant Boone's Ferry bottles. And they put that in the public so they can drink that, and then I hide the good
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, way
Same
in
with
the
the
back.
whiskey. Yeah, because they would drink every drop, man. I mean, it was like
Oh my
so
gosh.
now they're moved out, and so you can actually have nice things. You can have nice things that won't get eaten or drank, and you can also have nice furniture that won't get destroyed. That's another one of until the grandchildren come over, then it's all over again.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my
So
gosh, that's
we,
so funny.
we had the
And then I have
we had the
and then
yeah.
I have
Go ahead.
my kids who aren't interested in alcohol at all.
Uh,
We've raised our kids in kind of like a European minded household, and so whenever we've had anything, it's like, do you want to sip? Do you want to sip? Do you want to sip? Whether it's like a schnapps or a port
uh,
or a beer or whatever, a pina colada. We've always been
uh,
like, here, want to sip? Stick your finger in, take a taste, and so my kids are like, ugh, I don't want any of that.
yeah.
I have this yummy bottle of limoncello that I bought at Trader Joe's. I love limoncello, and I
Right.
drink it everywhere, like wherever they have it. I'm like, I got it. So
Uh,
anyway, this is actually pretty good. It's tart, but also
uh,
sweet, but it's really really good. Like you could drink it with like a half can of seltzer, to kind of
mhm.
dilute it, and or you
Yeah.
can just do it straight with like some a couple ice cubes in it. And I
Mhm.
was like, "Ooh, guys, you want to try this?" And they're both like, ugh, ugh.
I had that same philosophy. It didn't work though.
It didn't work. They're like, "Woo,
It's the
that's
same
it."
thing. Well, my daughter, she doesn't really, she's very little, but the boys will like get hammered. So I had to like hide that stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And they're good guys, but you can't buy expensive stuff. That's for
Yeah,
sure. It'll be
yeah,
gone. So,
yeah. I
well,
know.
yeah,
Yeah, well, you know what? It's to enjoy.
mhm,
It's like the fancy guest soaps. Like,
right.
they're going to get dusty and cracked, and you're going to have to throw them away. Just rub them in your hands. Use that
No,
stuff.
that's absolutely true. It's like my whole thing is, look, guys, we got to limit this to the weekends then, which we do, and that works pretty good. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But I thought we kick off with the let's see, let me get the chat thing going here. I thought we kick off with some news about Portlandia because it never gets old, even though it feels like it gets old because it's the same stuff. So I saw, and I think I said there was a restream, and it encapsulated everything in one spot about how badly Portland politics has destroyed the retail environment in Portland. And the thing about retail's out there in front of you. You walking around, you see it. It's not like other type forms of business. You walk into the stores, you see the people on the street. The vibrancy of a city is directly tied to the retail environment. If you think about that, right? And what they have done to this once beautiful city, it's just so incredible when you see it all in one spot. So I'm going to walk you through Portlandia over the last 5 years. So here we go. Hang on. So Oregon storefronts go dark as retail jobs vanish at 5 times the rate of any other place in the country, right? And I'll have to cut and paste that part and put it in the chat box. So anybody who wants to see the carnage for themselves, right? So look at this now. I'm just going to walk through a number of these, and I know the city really cold. So for me, I can see it in my head. Nike opened a store on Martin Luther King Boulevard, right? and they had 276 theft incidents in 2023. 200, hell, there's only 350 days in a year, right? So every day. So and it was an iconic Nike store. It was huge. They had discount stuff. Everybody knew where that store was. They closed that. Target closed all 3 stores in Portland, in the county, on the same day in 2023 because of organized shoplifting. REI, local outfit, in the Pearl, which is like a very hip part of Portland, is kind of like, what do they call the hip part in San Diego? It's
The gas lamp.
Gaslamp. So the Pearl is Portland's answer to the Gaslamp, right? And the REI store closed after being open 20 years. That they spent $800,000 in security that year. But the final straw was they had 3 break-ins in 1 year. On the final one, a car drove through the front door on Black Friday, and I remember that happening. There's 2 really tall buildings in downtown Portland. They're both about 40 stories. The U.S. Bank closed that didn't renew their lease in that 40-story building. Wells Fargo said, we're out of here. 5 Starbucks closed in 2025. The Nordstrom operates a store called The Rack. Now, Nordstrom's a Seattle-based firm, but Seattle and Portland are sister cities, and so Nordstrom's huge in Portland. They closed their store in downtown Portland. The same year that they opened 25 stores across the nation, they closed the ones in Portland. CVS closed. Now, Pioneer Square, which is like the main square of downtown Portland, iconic, beautiful. Everybody hung out in Pioneer Square back in the day. And there's a mall right next to it that had 100 stores. It's down to 20 stores now, right? It's a ghost town. And Lloyd Center, which, legend has it, is the first mall in the United States. It's built in 1960. It's been closed and is set for demolition. They're already tearing it down. And the other Pink Tower, it's a 40-story building. It sold for $372 million in 2015, sold for $45 million last year because nobody's in it, right? They're selling properties for pennies in the dollar. Pac West was sold for $55 million. In 2016, it was sold for $170 million. Montgomery Park, another giant, store operation here, sold for $33 million last year. It was bought for $205 million in 2018. I mean, you can't make it's like catastrophic what they've done to this town, and where it shows up, and it is like 90% of it is a refusal to enforce the law. People just don't go down there because, who wants to get chased by like. And there were guys that remember years ago, and they had them on video, guys wielding machetes, 2 guys naked fighting on the main drag. People walking by just looking at them like it's like just looking at a dog going to the bathroom on a tree. You got 2 naked guys wrestling on the sidewalk. I mean, it's just like you can't even make it up. It's like some third world. Did this really happen in Portland? And now you go downtown and there's no drug fiends or anything. They moved all that out. The tents are all gone because the tents were like incredible. And but now all the businesses have gone. So now there's no one there. And there's something eerie about walking through a major city and there's no one there. I'm sure if it's safer to have drug fiends walking around or no one. No one's weird. I mean, I had to go down there to drop off a cousin at a hotel. And I'm checking my 6th the whole time. Like, this is like really strange. The next person you see is like 3 blocks down the street. The windows that used to be bustling with restaurants and, the atmosphere of a 5-star hotel. And they're either closed or no one's in them. It is a really odd feeling. And it's like, what can you say? I've never experienced anything like it in my life. And so I don't know about those of you who are online who've had no. It's like get back up at the moment. There was mine. And so while we're waiting at Seattle, Seattle is our and as crazy as we are, every now and then you look north and you think, well, they're in the same place we are. They have these far left activists and they keep turning up for doing more crime. In this case, an Antifa linked anarchist who was supporting Black Lives Matters has been charged with child sex crimes. And like and his name, by the way, y'all know, his name is Ghetto. That's the name. Gothic Ghetto is the guy's name. You can't make it up. And activists in the leftist community are refusing to believe the charges that are brought to him. But if police bring charges to you for anything in Seattle, because they don't like to enforce any crime, there's probably a substantial likelihood that that there's at least a high possibility that there's been some guilt here. So that was another one of those things. And then here's the other one. And this is just the goes to show the lack of good governance that we see in Portland continues to stun. So there's an organization called Home Forward that apparently the city uses in order to help manage the homeless issue. So three Portland city councilors said that they were troubled that the CEO of this organization had travel expenditures where she spent more than $100,000 in agency-funded travel between 2023 and 2025, and that this warranted a closer inspection. To which I would say, like, no kidding. So this is the danger when the government gets involved in trying to do things that the government really ought not be doing in the first place. This is the sort of thing that should be handed over to private organizations. This is where churches and nonprofits are much better designed to handle these kinds of things, and not the government. Because whenever you get the government involved with this, the opportunity for theft and graft is just too huge. And it appears that this is precisely what's happened here. And the whole thing with, I'll call it the homeless industry complex, their job is not to solve the problem. Their job appears to be to just keep the problem going and increase their payroll, because that's precisely, what's been happening here. So there is that. The other thing, to go to broaden the lens and go a little bit national, and I'm going to just drop this in the box here. And this is the whole thing occurring with Indiana in terms of the redistricting vote. Now, I'm not sure if many of you have been able to follow that, but last year, what happened in Indiana was the Republicans had a supermajority, and they filed a bill to redistrict the state into like non-racist districts that would have wound up with the GOP picking up 2 seats in the House of Representatives. Now, it had no problem getting through the Indiana House, but when it got to the Senate, 21 Republicans voted with 10 Democrats to stop it. It is just absolutely amazing that Republicans would behave in this fashion. And what those are a classic example of rhinos. So 7 of the folks who voted that way were up for re-election this year. And what happened for them was they got destroyed in those contests. Most of them lost by double digits, and lost by, on average, like 2 or 3 of them lost by 18 points. And my understanding is Trump raised over 12 million in an effort to help those folks run these people out of office. But this is the sort of thing that has to happen around the country. We have more and more rhino Republicans who claim to be Republicans, but then when the rubber hits the road, they won't vote for the conservative issues. And so it's really cool to see that happen there. So anyway, that I thought was inspirational. More of that. Thank you, Indiana.
Yeah.
Hey, you're Leslie. So I just left the Portland nightmare, of which you can comment on that as well, because I'm sure that you're on the West Coast, and so I'm sure you're seeing the same things in San Diego, LA, that we're seeing in Portland, Seattle. It's just a slow suicide. And one last comment I'd make, and this is, I didn't have an article on this, but I'm not sure if you followed. Seattle elected a mayor who lives in her parents' basement, literally, had no like outside job, no experience or background whatsoever. And she came out and basically said, well, if when she was responding to companies leaving the city, she's like, well, let them leave then. That's the mentality. That's who. So they elected in Seattle someone as crazy as the mayor of New York, and they elected this person in Seattle. And businesses are fleeing Seattle like there's no tomorrow. It's just like back in the 80s. The last person that leaves Seattle turned off the lights.
Turn the lights off, yeah. Wow. I mean,
so you wonder how much pain can they stand in those cities?
I mean, it's like watching your addicted family member, and you think, well, gosh, how much lower can they go? How much more can their health be compromised? How much can their safety be compromised? How much indignity do they have to endure? And they have to decide what those levels are. Seattle residents have to decide what those levels are. I mean, but I keep going back to, are the voter rolls right? Because you and I are not going to put up with that sort of stuff. So how are these people getting elected? Really, truly, how are there enough wackos to vote these people into office? I mean, it just doesn't make sense that there would be so many. Like, I get it if you've got the loud minority, right? They're the ones that are going to, show up and protest and be annoying, but they're the minority. Like, statistically, these people are the minority. So how is it that they're able to get somebody elected? I have to believe it's fake.
Well, let me give you a theory. And I heard this, I can't remember what author or lecture I was listening to where this guy was presenting this as a specific strategy. And he was basing it on a strategy that was undertaken. It might have been New Orleans or in one city back there. But bottom line, the strategy was this. What you do is, the goal of any politician is to get in office, stay in office, right? We know that, right? So if you have views that are not in alignment with like the general citizens, well, how do you get the majority to stay there? So this person, I can't remember what it was, what it was called. You have to get enough people who don't think, if you will, people who are on the dole to move into a geography. So you offer all kinds of goodies. You do this stuff and you get the illegals from out of the country and you get people from across the country who move into your geography who don't want to do anything, or those, and you get them all concentrated in certain geographies. What happens is those people are dependent on stuff, but they're going to vote to keep more stuff. And the people who are productive citizens don't want to be around that. They leave, which increases the proportion of people who want the goodies, right? Now, obviously, the thought is this is eventually going to break the bank because the tax base goes away, productive citizens leave, the businesses leave, but that's a longer term issue to deal with. Maybe you can beg for money from the state and the federal government to support you. But what that does, it makes you a permanent person in office. You now have one political party. And if you think about what's happened in these blue cities across the board, that's pretty much what's happened. Think about, has Detroit been run by anybody but a Democrat? Has St. Louis or East St. Louis been run by anybody but a Democrat? Has Memphis been run by anybody? These are all one-party geographies, and have been so for like 40 or 50 years. And in each of the cases, they are like abysmal failures. And the people who are there they vote for the goodies and they're thoughtless and not productive citizens. And the government keeps them on the dole, keeps destroying the family, which keeps reproducing the same result. I'm not sure if you've seen any images of like East St. Louis, for example. If you haven't, you should go on YouTube and look it up. It's a city that literally nature is taking it over again. So the vines are growing over the sidewalks. There's parts of Detroit like this too. Old opera houses where trees are growing through the windows and it's getting covered. It looks like an archaeological find. That's how bad it is. That's how destroyed these places are. And are we going to be a country that we just have these pockets of places we just wall off and forget about them? Because that's pretty much what's happened with these cities.
Well, I mean, right. And we've got Trump going in, with the National Guard, to clean up certain areas like DC, right? Like Chicago, where, and sometimes they're successful, right? In some of these cities, they've been as successful, Memphis. But then you've got things like, in Minnesota, where, ICE came in hard. There were some, radical protesters who unfortunately lost their life. And then next thing ICE draws back. And so it's like you have to keep going. You can't just pull back just because things are getting uncomfortable. You have to lean in.
Well, DC is an easy solution because it's in the federal jurisdiction to be able to do that. It belongs to the federal government. These other ones, the states have to ask. What I'd like to see is the states that are Republican, So now you have a Republican governor. He can ask the federals to come in. It doesn't matter what the mayor wants. So in a place like Tennessee, I'm pretty sure Tennessee's Republican governor, then you can call for that help. Now you look at like Oregon, Washington, California, that doesn't exist because the governor is just as crazy as the mayors.
Yeah.
If it's to do that in a place where the governor is against it, now you've got, you got Civil War implications. I mean, you got all kinds of things that you don't want to do. They might have to, and then even remember this, even in a place like California, remember the vast majority of the state's red. And to your point earlier, I'm not sure that the voting rolls are clean anyway.
Yeah.
Like in Oregon, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, I think the stats are 60 blue, 40 red in California.
Yeah.
So I mean, because you've got so many people in the cities, in the crazy cities, but so I mean, if you lined them all up and everybody was voting, if those numbers are real, I mean, that's what the voter rolls kind of say. So yeah, once they clean up the rolls, then we may have a different picture.
Yeah, I think that might make a huge difference. And then it's a question of like how are they dark blue, those blues?
Right.
A certain percentage of them are going to be sane blues. Like, I'm a progressive liberal. I'm a JFK liberal. I'm not a progressive liberal. That's the noise you hear in Portland, for example, now.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, Portland is Oregon is a significantly smaller state. But I think the population here is around 6 million, I think, total. Mm-hmm. But they found like 800,000 votes that were like not here, didn't exist. Now, in a state of 6 million, 800,000 is a gigantic number. You're talking what's that, 15% or something? If that's true, that completely swings the vote. And and the governor race here, for example, it's getting closer and closer. It's a small state, so you don't get the noise that you get nationally. But I think they're within 5 points of each other. They were the last time around. Mm-hmm. Eliminate the cheating, and I'm thinking the same is true in California. This is it's not over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We've got 39.5 million people in California, and if they can clean things up like they're doing with what is it, like the SNAP? Didn't we talk about SNAP last week, where they had already pushed like 4.3 million people off food assistance because they weren't real or they were driving Lamborghinis.
And that was talked about clear back in the Reagan administration. Remember the whole thing around the welfare queens and all of that. You're always going to have. In fact, I remember when I lived there. Short story. There was a guy who would always be out washing the car windows at the gas station around the corner of my house. And it was owned by a guy. He was from Burma, and he owned the place. And now Burma's since become a different country now, but I'll call it Burmese for the sake of the conversation. And that guy would always talk to me with a thick accent, like, what's wrong with Americans? Why won't they work? I don't get it, right? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Meanwhile, there's this like handsome guy, probably about 35 years old, out washing the car windows, and he'd have to run him off the lot all the time. I talked to that guy, and that guy told me, and this is when Pete Wilson was the governor, I think it was. He was like, yeah, I get like, a couple $100 for Pete, walking around money from Pete Wilson. You call him Pete. Pete drops down a couple $100 a month. And he told me, right, when you added it all up, it was around $1,500 in free money. And I live with a woman who takes care of me, right? So I don't have to pay rent or anything. I'm not paying taxes on this. Anything he's making out here is like there's no tax. You start doing the math on that stuff. And it's not like a middle-class person has a hard time fathoming this, but it's a pretty good living. I did the math at a traffic signal. This is my LA days. So you get to those gigantic intersections where you have like 5 cars lined up to turn left, for example, right? So that traffic signal is going to change, but every 2 minutes. So you got 30 shots. If you're sitting on that island in the middle, you got 30 shots to hit 5 cars. And if each of those 5 cars gives you $5, that's $25. What? Times 30, right? So you're popping $600 an hour without taxes. Now, that's just quick and dirty math. You don't have to be out there very long to do all right. And this is one last thing I'll add to this. There was a reporter for the Journal, back when the Wall Street Journal used to actually report news. This is back in the 80s. I worked at KFC at the time, so I knew about this. So what you would have is in the rough parts of town, the KFC employees under lunch break would change out of their uniform and go around the corner and then bang on the corner. And they make as much money doing that for that hour as they did during the 8-hour shift. That was the thing. And the reporter reported this. And this is in the Wall Street Journal. I was laughing and said, yeah, I do that. That's $300 tax free. 1 hour work. How much is that? $200 an hour? You know, if I make if I make $10 every time the light changes, if you just use that, and the light changes 30 times in an hour,
Do you
well,
think
$100.
do you think people are giving that much these days? Or have people
At least
become like,
five.
have
I
they
don't think-
become compassion fatigued? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
like they're like they'll protest and they'll, you know, rattle their signs and they'll put their little avatars on social media, but are they actually digging in their wallets? I think people are not digging in their wallets. That's why they want government to give. That's why they're voting for all of these government programs, and they're getting pissed off that Doge is shutting down, you know, grants to useless programs, because they're not actually giving. They're not doing Operation Christmas Child. They're not donating, you know, to the Bloodmobile. They're not actually going on mission trips. They want somebody else to do it. They need a stand-in.
Well, here's what I think, though. To a certain extent, like the middle class person gets this, the average, I'll call it conservative person, definitely gets that. You would give to an organization where you know it's going to help them. I mean, that's what we do, right? So the philosophy is don't give stuff to people in the corner because it's going to drink it up, right? But there's lots of people who do that for the dopamine hit. I forget what they call it, the virtue signal of
Yeah.
I feel good, look at me, look what I'm doing.
Right.
And they may not be giving $5 or $10, $20 like they used to, but I still see them, and you're at the light and you watch them give them money. I got a figures anywhere from $2 to $5, and if there's 5 or 10 cars and you hit 5 cars, and each 5 cars give you $2, well, that's $10 in 2 minutes. And if you add that up over the course of an hour, that's like not bad money when you're not taxing it.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, you're talking about sitting at a stoplight or being at the gas station. And did you see that in California the average gas price is $6.13 this week? I think I paid $6.75 a couple days ago.
You might not want to ask for money at the gas station.
No, not at all. Oklahoma has the cheapest gas, $3.89 on Monday,
Right.
but the national average is $4.48, and diesel's at $5.65. Jet fuel's up 65%. We're looking at booking a vacation to Middle America, and we're looking at prices at for airline tickets, and thinking to ourselves, prices are high.
Mhm.
I bet if we wait, if we just sort of, we're certainly like, we're looking at October, right? So we've got plenty of time to book, but there's, that old, book early. But I don't think book early is the answer right now, because everything is just so.
Well, and here's the thing: the national data, I was looking at this, shows people are spending anyway. So this hasn't stopped them from spending. They're going on their vacations, they're going on their cruises. They might moan and groan about gas prices, but it's not changing their behavior. So,
people are optimistic, I guess.
People are optimistic. I mean, the jobs data is great. And certainly when you look down the road of the number of organizations that are opening businesses in this country now, and all of that sort of thing, it's all up. So I don't know.
I don't know if jobs are up. I mean, people are getting laid off left and right. Like, everybody knows this, that we're all experiencing it. AI, is killing, thousands and thousands of jobs at individual companies. But did you see that in China, a worker actually just won a case against his company in China, of all places. His position was eliminated due to AI. His job was to look at large language models and sort of like fact check. And he was basically told, your position is no longer available to you, so we're going to we're gonna move you into a job that, like before, it was like a $1,200 pay cut a month. And he sued and he won, and then they appealed and they lost, and then they appealed again and they lost again. So good news out of China.
Yeah, I don't know. The fact that it's out of China makes me like, I don't know. It's good, but you got to figure that place is being just decimated by the economy there is like horrendous.
But that's why it's so weird that he would have won there. You know,
Yeah.
they're the ones that are they're in a race with us, right? On AI. So,
Well, well, however much lying our press does, their press does it times 20.
oh, sure.
So yeah, it's like the jaundiced eye with what comes out of there.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we'll
but
see. We'll see how that rolls out because what came out was that you cannot state AI as a reason for firing anymore. You actually have to show cause, I guess. California, we're kind of like a no fault state, so you can just, let someone go for whatever you want. But I, if they, but businesses, American businesses are looking at this and going, well, gosh, if this is going to become a thing, then I need to come up with a better reason. And I've also heard some recruiters say that businesses are using AI as an excuse to pare down on up staffing that they did during COVID. That there's a lot of companies that are bloated and they're trying to figure out how to right size, and AI is a perfect little scapegoat to use. So that
Yeah.
may be true too. I mean, I guess we'll have to see what the jobs actually look like.
well, companies are always going to behave at the end of the day, the profit motive, what is the behavior that gets me the most, return?
Yeah.
And if my competition, this is the other thing, it's not a moral thing. If the competition is doing something and you're not doing it, and you got to do it to keep up with the Joneses, sort of thing. Otherwise, your customers will go over there. It's like people will cry and moan all day about how nasty airlines are, but if somebody's cheaper, they'll go fly them. You might have a nicer airline, but you said you wanted nicer. No, what you really wanted was cheaper.
Yeah.
So these things are kind of hard to parse. I think.
Well, we'll see how if people change their course, if they revert course, if they they lay off 8,000 workers citing AI efficiencies, and the next thing you know, they're hiring people back. I mean, that's what I mean. That's in manufacturing, especially they do that because they've got to ramp up for production and assembly, and so they hire a bunch of people, and then they get through the push, and then they have to lay everybody off. I mean, Qualcomm, who's a major employer in San Diego, and I mean, we've got a lot of millionaires built from Qualcomm. Early stages of Qualcomm, they are famous for doing that, and so they have a good and bad reputation for that. But I mean, a lot of companies do that. I mean, they're responsible for the bottom line. They're responsible to stockholders. So I get it, but
yeah, I wish it weren't so. I wish it weren't so, but it's the world we live in. Yeah, and the other thing too with this COVID thing, here's one of those things people don't talk about, but when they force people like to go home and do all of that stuff, there were a number of organizations I'm sure looked at, well, you were coming to the office and then we didn't have you, but the revenue didn't change. Well, maybe we really didn't need you after all. And I'll give you a classic example and I wasn't in it when this was happening, but in the pharmaceutical industry. So pharmaceutical sales. So sales reps can't call in offices. And then you look at the geography and, well, the revenue didn't change and you guys aren't calling in offices. Well, maybe we don't need you.
Well, they couldn't go in, but they certainly had to keep calling. I mean, docs aren't going to order on their own.
Oh yeah, but in that business, yeah. So the whole thing is built on the number of calls, a face-to-face call on a doctor, changing prescribing behavior. And if you're not doing that thing that the whole sales model is based on, maybe we need a lot less of that thing than we thought we did.
Yeah.
And I think in a number of geographies, this gets into the weeds of that industry. But if the insurance companies are really the ones driving what prescription you can write anyway, maybe that's where the resources need to go, is calling on the insurance company, not the doctor, because the doctor is not the decision maker, neither is the patient. And the industry started moving more. So you have less and less sales representatives going into offices and more people just calling on insurance companies. And you need a lot less of them for that, because there's fewer people making those decisions. There's thousands of doctors, only a handful of insurance company executives.
But I think that the law in, was it like the 90s, where they started to allow, was it the 90s or early 2000s, when they started to allow direct consumer marketing of drugs. I think that drove a lot of pharma sales, because you had people coming in saying, I heard about this and I want it. And so
Oh,
then the
absolutely.
docs would go, oh, okay. And then they'd start pushing in that request to the insurance companies, and then the insurance companies would then get on board for it.
Yep.
But
So that's certainly a component, and there's no way that you can objectively separate that stuff out. I mean, if I put a if I pay for an ad behind home plate in the World Series, well, how much revenue is that generating? Well, you don't know.
no, you don't know.
Yeah, you're guessing. It raises awareness, but nothing beats a human being standing with another human being closing a deal.
Yeah.
But that's a very high cost, that's a high cost thing. You'd much rather close that deal with a TV ad because that's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
So,
but you're not going, but I mean, you're in sales, I'm in marketing. Like, you need all of that. You need that wide net, marketing and sales approach, because if all you have is just mouth to mouth, it's not going to spread as fast as if you need those impressions. You need the TV ad. You need the ad behind home plate. You need the social media messaging. You need all of that in order to reinforce, because it's the number of impressions that actually, impacts the activity. So if you can get all those impressions digitally, right, instead of sending somebody out, like you're talking about, visiting the dock, that's expensive. It's mileage, it's time, it's, dry cleaning your suit, it's all of that. So,
right. So yeah, it's a question, not so much of, you have all those buttons to push on a dashboard, but the cost of the buttons has changed over the last 50 years. So, and there's buttons available now that weren't available before, like ads on your phone, for example, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe the ratios, and it will depend on where you are in the market too.
Yeah.
Because certain geographies will have hurdles that other geographies don't have. So the whole thing's become more complicated. But at the end of the day, you probably need less breathing human beings that you did before.
Probably.
To get the same return.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing with this AI thing. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. I'm not so one to quickly call it like catastrophic doomsday, because historically that's what's happened with every new technological innovation. Yeah. People were crying doomsday with the invention of the wheel. Probably they were crying doomsday if you were in the buggy whip business, man. You were crying doomsday when that happened, right? When cars came in, what about the guys who took care of the guys who were shoeing the horses? Now they got doomsday. So, markets are interesting beasts, and they're difficult to predict how it will play out. So, we'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. But just when you just said doomsday and you said AI, I sent you a commercial that the gentleman who's running for LA mayor against Karen Bass, his name is Spencer Pratt. His house burned down in the Palisades fire, and he has been coming out so strong. I mean, he calls Karen Bass Karen Basura, because basura is trash in Spanish, and so he's always calling her Karen Basura, Mayor Basura. And he's done a whole series of AI commercials going bonkers. I mean, on these guys, depicting Karen Bass as the Joker, and he's Batman. And, you've got like Marie Antoinette, they're all sitting at this big banquet in this medieval council and the castle. What's her face? Kamala Harris is there. AOC is there. There's just a bunch of like known bad players who are there, and they're sitting at this big table, long table, stuffing themselves with food while these, guards are dragging in, these little people, this mom who's, not able, she's complaining that, there's homeless people that are camped outside of her kids' school, and the people sitting at the table, the Marie Antoinettes and all the Karen Basuras, they're like laughing as they've got a turkey leg in their mouth, and they're all just dolled up. I mean, he is owning AI, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
I can't wait to see it.
I sent it to you, but mean, anybody look up Spencer Pratt, and you will. I mean, he's good. He's
Is he the one that was a real estate developer down there?
No, he was an actor. He was like a B-list actor, a reality star guy. And the only thing that he had going for him was his house burned down in the fires. And he was just like every other wealthy person living in, in a big old house. he was trying to rebuild, and he was getting into, he like was caught up in the whitewater of the bureaucracy, and started to like go on Instagram and just expose things like, here's my property and this is what's going on. And then he started filing FOIAs and finding out all of this stuff about admissions that, you know, Karen Bass had actually hidden recommendations by the fire department for abatement and for proper preparation and opening up different water resources. And I mean, and they had, you know, presented this report to her, and she'd scuttled it. And then she was out of town. She was actually out of the country during the fire. Like, she flew out of town knowing the fires had started. And she went to another. I can't remember where it was, but anyway.
Liberia. I think it was Liberia.
Somewhere where there wasn't a fire in a city that she was in control of. You know, like, what do you? So anyway, that's check it out. I mean, you will really appreciate AI after seeing that.
I think the guy I was thinking of, there's another guy who's running. He's a developer, and I think he's the one who's running for. Is he one of the ones running for governor? Maybe. I'll have to look it up in California. But it's really cool to see that there's somebody going at Bass head on, because what they're proposing to do to the Palisades in LA and all that, man, that is so communist. It's so bad. They cannot be allowed to get away with that. I think most of us think that everybody who lives in the Palisades is rich, and that's not necessarily true. If your grandparents bought a house there, and I've been in that area a lot, I used to ride bikes in that area, and you might have a little, 1,700-foot house that was passed down for several generations. The thing went from like being worth $25,000 in 1955, and now the thing's worth $1.2 million. But it's your house, it's your home, and that's where you want to live.
Yeah, property values are no indication of wealth. You know, I mean, you may have it in your portfolio, but you're not spending it. Like, are you going to take out a HELOC in order to pay your bills? Of course not. And when you live in these in California, most places in California, your property values are going to go up. And honestly, it's not even a reflection of the quality of the neighborhood. It's just not. You happen to live there. And so, but you're still living in a tract home. Your house didn't all of a sudden get 3-4 times better.
Yeah, the people, the ones they put on the TV are the 15,000-foot mansion, 20,000. But that's not the average of these. They're regular houses, just happen to be in these zip codes. And now they want to like steal these places, these homes from these people.
Yeah,
it's like a complete outrage.
Yeah. Well, so we'll see how all that turns out. But you know what I want to know more about is James Comey turning himself in. I know we've talked about it very briefly. This is the second time they've gone after him, and it's stuck. And so, now he's turned himself in. So I don't know. I think it's going to be really interesting to see, because of course he's going to start flipping on people.
Well, how many of these people are going to start? Because now it's not theoretical, right? I mean, these are grand jury, like indictment kinds of things, man. This is like next level stuff. I'm trying to see if I had anything on that real quick. But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing is true of the Fulton counties in Atlanta. You start having grand juries, people start getting arrested. Yeah, look at this James Comey thing. This was the one where he drew in the sand, the 8647 thing.
Yeah.
I mean, how juvenile, that's the other thing of this. A grown man, a government official did something that juvenile. I just can't fathom that you would do something like that. It speaks to a mind virus of some sort that you would do something. It's just silly and asinine and childlike.
Well, and if you ever started having imposter syndrome in whatever you're doing and feeling like, oh my gosh, like I'm not smart enough, I'm not sophisticated enough, just take a look at these career politicians and these bureaucrats, like, who have so much power and so much money, and they're dumb as dirt. I mean, they just don't know how to make good decisions. Like you said, they're childish, they're vindictive, they're egotistical.
And the thing is, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to make an assumption here that I can't back up using the evidence-based reasoning model. I'm going to throw this out there, and I'm this is just off the top of my head. I've not really thought it through, but you wonder if there's more of them on the left than the right that exhibit this like childlike, name calling type behavior, the inability to make a case to support a position. It sure feels like it. When I think about people like the mayor of LA, the governor of San Francisco, the congresswoman from like the Bay Area, you start going through the list of these people, and none of them articulate a position. The governor of New York, the mayor of New York City, it's all name calling. I mean, tell me here's a problem, and here's the steps I'm going to take to fix the problem, and here's what I've done in the past that has worked for that problem. You virtually never get that. It's 100% like, what's the clown's name? Hakeem, whatever. Hakeem Jeffries walking around with a baseball bat. We got to be more aggressive. It's like, what does that mean? It's like if you had trouble making your mortgage payment, would you say to your neighbor, you know what? I got to be more aggressive. Let me get a baseball bat. I can fix my problem so I can earn more money to get my mortgage. No, you think to yourself, well, I got to cut some bills and some expenses. Maybe I can get a raise in my job. Maybe I can get a different job. Maybe I can get a second job. You'll be doing things that would objectively show you the ability to like fix that problem. We don't get that kind of behavior from government. If the government's overspending, you see this, I'm sure it's true nationally, definitely in Oregon. We're underwater. So what do these clowns do in Portland? Let's go to the neighboring counties and ask them for more money so we can like pay for this homeless issue. Rather than look at my budget and say, I got 10 items here. Which of these 10 need to be reduced to cut, so I can cover this nut over here? Or maybe I just do less services for that, right? This is rational. We don't get any rational behavior from these people.
No, we don't get that either. I mean, no.
Yeah, and that might go back to that strategy. And I'll have to look it up, but I talked about the guy in Louisiana, I think did, was you want to get enough dumb people, or people I should put it, you want to get enough people who are on the dole, who all they care about is the handout they're getting. And they're not voting for fixing problems. They're voting for getting goodies. Mm-hmm. That's always been the weakness of our process. And it was the famous philosopher Alexis de Tocqueville, the French philosopher in the 1800s, who said, that's the danger. Basically, if people ever figure out they can vote goodies for themselves, then this thing would be in a heap big trouble.
Yeah.
And that was an excellent call out. Because my sense is that's what you get a concentration of people who want goodies in one spot.
Yeah.
How do you affect change?
Yeah.
I sort of think the only thing is complete collapse. So if they're not bailed out by the state or the feds, let's say let's say you're Memphis, and Tennessee's a Republican-run state, and you just say we're just not subsidizing it. So so Memphis just has to just disintegrate. If it's a Democrat state governor, now it's a longer distance to that because they'll steal money. If you're in Oregon, you can steal money from all the smaller cities in the state to fund the nightmare in Multnomah County until it collapses. If it was a Republican state, the governorship would just turn it off. If you're Indiana, Indianapolis is doing that. Well, just let it go to hell. Surrounded with troops, put some barbed wire around it, and call it good.
Nobody in, nobody out.
Nobody in, nobody out, man. It's like short of that, the idea of bringing in a National Guard and enforcing the law, I love that idea, but I don't think my gut is it's not practical unless you have a conservative governor to go with it, because a Republican governor can invite you in, then you don't have these constitutional issues. Even though Honest Abe dealt with that, it's not like we haven't gone through this before.
Yeah.
JFK dealt with it. We had to call the troops in to get the kids into high school in Arkansas. Right? It's not like this is new. Eisenhower had to deal with the same thing, because of Democrat governors not wanting to let little black kids go to school. This is Democrat stuff. That's what cracks me up. If you're black and you vote Democrat, you are an absolute fool. I mean, that's all I can. And I hope my relatives aren't watching this.
Because, well, Don, it's just like Joe Biden said. If you're not voting Democrat, you ain't black.
I mean,
so,
the party that kills
And he
30%
should
of
know.
black he should have. They abort 33% of black babies like killed by the Democrat Party, like just killed, right?
Well, I mean, it wasn't Joe Biden actually like supportive of segregation? I mean, I think he went on the House floor or something or whatever, and he was actually advocating for segregation in like the 80s or the 90s or something. I mean, this is.
Well, was a senator from Virginia. He was the one lauding what a great guy he was, and dude was like the head of the KKK, like
David
in
Duke,
like West Virginia back in the day, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. So speaking of wrapping barbed wire around an area and not letting anybody in or out, did you see that the Archdiocese of New York has now offered an $800 million settlement to settle 1,300 sexual abuse claims? 1,300.
I missed that, but when did those occur?
So it's happened over the last couple decades. All victims must agree to the there's so like I said, there's 1,300 claims, 1,300 victims. All victims have to agree to the settlement, or no payment will be made. So they've got two ways that you can pay. They can receive a $250,000 quick pay. If you're one of the 1,300, you sign here, boom, you get $250,000, or you can elect to go in and have a private consideration of your specific claim if you think you can get some more. But obviously that's going to be drawn out, and the lawyers are saying if they don't wrap this up quickly, they are afraid that the diocese is going to file for bankruptcy and there's going to be no money. So
maybe that's the strategy.
I don't know, but I mean, the victims were minors, assailants were priests and church staff. I mean, it was the whole ecosystem that was working, against these kids. So, anyway, yeah, let's throw some barbed wire around that place and lock them up.
Call it good. And that in and of itself was the result of, well, it is dangerous territory, but was a result of an archdiocese that no doubt started caving into allowing leftist stuff in their outfit. And you do that,
Yeah, I think it's cowardice.
Yeah.
I think it's cowardice, like so many places. And unfortunately, churches across the spectrum have fallen into this. I mean, we've talked about this before, where people are just not willing to come out and say the things that actually are in the Bible. That these things are wrong, these things are right. You should vote in this way. You should support causes like this. You should disassociate with people like that. And I don't know what you have to tell yourself to look the other way.
This is the flip side of Christian kindness, if you will. We're all taught to be kind, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But the flip side of that is that can be taken advantage of, because if you wanted to be kind, and kindness is like a dopamine hit, you feel good because you did something that was kind, but you might have to also tell that dope fiend that you're handing money to like stop doing dope. Well, that's not going to feel good, and that person's not going to be happy, and you got to take an unpopular position and not feel good. And so this is one of the reasons why I think when you look at the helping organizations, a lot of Christian groups and churches, they're all over that. And I've gone to meetings where they're all over that. Give money, give this, give that, give that. But when it comes time to like enforcing the law, like in the immigration crisis is a classic example of that. You have churches who are all over like, well, we shouldn't like enforce law, let as many of them as you can. No, they're breaking the law. So yes, we want to do this in a ethical and gentle way as possible. But at the end of the day, we have a duty to the citizens that are already here to send them back. And the ones that do crime have to go to jail. That doesn't feel good. And you're going to get called a bunch of names, and people don't like that. And they will dodge that. And that, what do you call that? One of the virtues is courage, and one of the vices is cowardice. That's called cowardice.
Yeah. Well, I think, kindness is somewhere on the spectrum, but I think cruelty is definitely on that spectrum.
Mhm.
You know, you are overtly cruel or you are covertly cruel. Covertly cruel might be you allow homeless people to sleep in your doorway when they're slumped over on drugs. Okay, you're not giving them the drugs, you're
Mhm.
not, walking past them when they're shooting up, but you know they're on drugs, and um and they're sleeping there, and that's they're being a danger to themselves. You're
Mhm.
not being kind to them. Okay, and then overt cruelty is you're actually abusing, or you're looking the other way when a child is being abused.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's, or you're in support of an abortion clinic in your town.
Mhm. Right. Right. Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I, I mean, there's just none of it is good. None of it is good.
Mhm.
The kind move would be to safely approach the homeless person and get that person into some sort of sober living situation.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And be willing to risk. You're going to get called names. They're going to be mad. They're going to be angry, and all of that.
But
But
looking the other way is not kindness at all.
no.
It's
No.
not.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, and that's what we have is we have a ton of people who are unwilling to step up to that other side of it. This is one of the reasons why Christianity it's a very hard, you know, religion, philosophy, whatever it is. It's just difficult.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, hey, look at what happened to the people who founded it. you know, it it wasn't like an easy life. Is the point? So,
No,
uh,
no, it was not.
well, we really know how to wipe them, how to round them up, huh? It's like at the top of the hour.
And we
But
didn't
that's
talk
what,
about Iran
yeah.
again. This is 2 weeks in a row. I'm kind of happy because it's so sticky, but whatever. I feel like,
Yeah, I remain, and granted, I see the world. I have a rose-colored glasses thing. I've always had that. I feel there's a ton of reasons for optimism. I think it's very easy to forget how far we've come. You look at where we were, like what are we, almost a year and a half into this presidency now? Where we were like 2 years ago, 3 years ago,
mm,
or when they stole the other election. It is like stunning the accomplishments, and we
yeah,
forget them. I mean, the man ended the administration's ended what, 8 wars? It's like the borders like sealed up. I mean, we want more of these people out of here, of course, but the we were told these things were impossible,
yeah,
and so we also have to remember that. Um, it's kind of like having gratitude for what we have. It's so easy to look forward to the next thing and stop and
yeah,
forget to thank God for the basics, the trees, the birds, the
yeah,
sky, the rain, the sunshine, the air we breathe, the husband or spouse, the kids. I mean, the health. I mean, right. These are like, we take them for granted, but you don't have to wake up tomorrow. You don't have to wake up feeling good either. right. So, yeah. Um, so I think it's hard to be unhappy when you have gratitude. And
yeah. Well, that's the challenge, is just to be grateful for the many things that are there and that are, and recognize the things that aren't there and ask for them. Ask for peace and ask for prosperity and safety and health and all those things, protection, but recognizing that there are we are we're so blessed, we're so lucky, we're so protected here. We don't
yeah,
have bombs dropping on our head like so many other
no,
places.
yeah, right. No, exactly. We live in such an incredible place, and to not forget that, and to not forget that. So, and doing things like this, we do what we can so we can keep it and improve it, keep it
That's
and
right.
improve it.
That's right, friend.
All right. Well, right on, my friend. It is always a pleasure. I hope those of you out there had as good a time as we did. If you didn't, that's your fault. Just
Yeah.
kidding. We had a good time. So glad y'all
You
enjoyed
need
it.
more cheap wine, maybe.
Yeah, more cheap wine. I don't know if it's legal to drink on the air or not, but I guess it is. All
Oh,
right. Leslie, it's always a pleasure. You guys take care and go USA.
all right. Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, everybody.